Hello, and in this message, I wanted to highlight the unlimited nature of potential expression that you can hold within any one moment, and what it would mean for you to interpret reality through the unlimited potential that you would feel within um, within any one circumstance. The the overarching aspect of human notion, but then in truth, there's larger aspects of um, all expressions of the divine hold within them the need for nuance and a need for multi version view of the perspective of any one moment. And so each moment in time or space, as you want to hold it, within itself exists as its own unique expression of the divine. But then each moment holds an unlimited number of interpretations or nuances from this standpoint of observer that it can have to interpret one particular moment. And so, with the new sense of I, with a new nimble version um, of your reality, when in the past you would have one moment of expression or one moment of the divine ray being intersected and then thus experienced and overlooked, your idea of the past would then be able to experience that moment, that one expression, that one cross section of of the divine through one overlook of self. And thus, a multitude of lives and multitude of forms in the past would have allowed you to take that moment and experience it from a different cross section of the ray. And in the new interpretation of I, you are now able to take any one moment and experience the entirety of it wholeness from any aspect of the observer that is part of your choice. And so the deposit of that knowledge, deposit of that information exists on such a large scale that the choice within your being that allows you to express any one moment or showcase or turn any one moment's perspective unto the observer of self of choice carries that information forth on a different scale or a different vibrational frequency than you have carried it before, right? And so the space and time which you then interpret sits on a different quantitative ray than your previous sets of experiences. So to go back to have a one moment to be experienced from the observer effect of one effect carries one dimensional set of circumstances and thus one vibrational signature of the divine expression. of I, but to then have an option to experience that same moment from the multitude of angles and multitude of expressions of the interpretive I, that is the multi-dimensional interpretation of self, then puts that interpretation on a different scale, on a different vibrational wavelength. And thus, that interpretive nature, being on a different scale, changes all perspective for all options of self. So you can almost look at it as that moment of I holding its infinite expression within itself, now having infinite potential of observation within itself, now holds an infinite potential of the depository nature of its fluidity into the rest of the moment. And so the multiplier effect that you would have going from a perspective of moment in an infinity to one observer, to a moment in an infinity and infinite observer, is just basically simply sits on a different plane of reality, different plane of existence, where the nuance is so vast, it almost gets lost in perspective. And the expression of self is so vast. Any one moment almost gets lost in perspective. And so thus, this loss of any one perspective, loss of any one nuance, then raises your vibrational comprehensive thought of self to a new level of potential. That vastness of information, that vastness of space, that vastness of the isness or the I-ness that you're now offering your being just on any one moment, through the multitude of moments and multitude of interpretations, simply cannot be contained in the space and the dimensional lock that you were able to stay in before. And now is forced, but not in a malicious intent, but in a sense of choice, self, is forced to expand the conscious interpretation. And thus, the expansion of your consciousness comes out of that choice. And so from the perspective of size, from perspective of dimensional input, that is how the propagation of your being, of your conscious expression of I looks like on the most rudimentary form of expression. And so if you understand that concept from this scale to that scale, and then you one moment, then you can start to extrapolate what that would mean and what that would feel like and what it would take for the conscious expression of you, the conscious expression of I, to then start to interpret things larger, right? And so the nuance, I wouldn't use the word gets lost, but it gets abstracted out to where in the past the nuance was a very solid, very vivid interpretation of I from one outlook of self. And now nuance is nuanced on a new level of expression, a new level of interpretation. Then now you can start to feel and comprehend on the most vastness scale possible. And so recognize the progression, recognize the sense of self that is now interpreting and functioning and growing and expanding its awareness. And then recognize the mechanical way of being that this might offer you a perspective of what that might be like or feel like from this transitory state of interpretation. And then recognize the loss of nuance is not the loss of nuance, but is opening of the nuance to overarching perspectives thereof, right? So each point of nuance, carrying more nuance within itself, allows you greater self-interpretation, right? The greater interpretation of the light of the divine that is the expression of you, then is being interpreted further out than ever before. And so, happy expressing and happy living, in recognition of the vastness of the scope and the scale of self that you now possess within your being. So I'm proud of you.